Assalamu alaikum. Good morning to everyone. And today is the 11th of the June and year 2022. And basically, the scientific issues in the neuroscience, I observed that the neuroscience issues in the Pakistan. The concept of the neuroscience criminology in adverse retroactive precedents appears to be the question in my central neurology now, because I feel it in the whole of the central subdivisional areas of the Lahore city, especially because I am living in the central Lahore. And the second factor, which I felt highly throughout my residential execution, and premises one that the ordinary civilians, under the de facto positions of the neglection of the society, that would be an offensive word, but we should have to be very reserved with ourselves that which are the elements which led the commoners into the subordinate points of not observing the multiple economic packages throughout the merger of their lives. They're just the offensive attitude of the family victimizations to the each other by the same subject of the non-intellectual capacities in the Pakistan appears to be the rock wall issue these days, as per my observations, primarily up till now. Um, and the landmark judicial obligation, which I observed that uh, the expiration of the time tenures and the non-calculated of the issues of the personal civil issues by the individuals in the Pakistan appears to be the top raised question in the Pakistan. But what we observe in the telecasting shows every day that the positive anchoring and the positive multimedia social issues are influxed with those issues of the social psychopath as well. Yes. The problem with the Republicans, because of non-calculated parameters of living in the execution of their own, appears to be the cross verification of the same as well. And they just try to collaterally live a life of homogeneous decline deferred positions while raising the pleas of the adversarial proverbs. Yes. They just raise the plea of the adverbial proverbs to their subordinate relations throughout their life. I just felt it. And after that, the so called morality, ethics, which they carry forward for their own skins, it's not a question now. The question appears to be the very targeted one that if an individual is not willing to capacitate itself with the execution of the normal actions under the normalcy of science thereafter, which elements aggressively denote with the same object of the controversial mediums in the Pakistan. They should have been understood by the Republicans in their houses, in their offices, in their official capacities, in their private capacities, despite of beating the drums that they were not provided the rights by the subordinates. If they were raising these pleas that they were not provided, but at the pointation of whom is my landmark judicial question to the all provincial autonomies of the central Pakistan, especially resident in the possession of the tenancy agreements in the whole of the Pakistan, that if they were not provided the right, then where from they were executing their sexual illicit principal activities. And after executing those activities, they tantamount claim that they were not in the positions to observe the fiscal deadlines provided to the same in the subject of controversial perfection, because they collectively target to each other. I felt it. and I am facing this issue, and everyone is facing this issue. But most oftenly, the public is not willing to extend their mental approach to each other to understand that they were being in the victimization of the multiple fiscal cum constitutional disorders in the central Pakistan. But it should have been provided, or it should have been accepted by the Republicans, that they, all of them, should have to reconsider that the effects of the multi-social disorders should have been communicated by the same object of the observations. I almost study whole night, and every night I'm educating the books. Yes, the books are not being educated by the law publishers in the Pakistan. I figured it out the secondary and negative phraseology provided in the books, that if the words and the phrases and the idioms are not used in the science of the scientific approved positions thereafter, the young students in would not be coupled in the positions to have the positions in the official mandate, because they have to show their precedence in the retroactive ruled out overruled negligence of their parents or their subordinates, because they are actually combined with those issues which they carry forward within their houses. The 97% right now in the whole of the central Lahore especially have and had become operative head charged over negated criminals in force, and the police SOPs via the police order 2002 should have been under consideration of the uh, judicial officers, that why the ordinary individuals are not becoming human. We just want them to become human. After that, they'll follow the religion of Islam. Now, that is my question. If they're not willing to become human and they are insane and they are not in the positions to follow the humanistic, yes, humanistic issues, thereafter which sort of the disasters under the dissolution of their subordinate points would be gathered, that is a question of fact now in my court of judicial justice. Wherever I am, that become an automated advanced judicial justice court, because I found myself to be a judicial operative officer enforced by myself without the reciprocity help of anyone. And despite of the discovery of the facts that the feminist issues in the Pakistan, I figured it out. These are the civil judicial issues in the Pakistan. The feminist issues. I just observed that the feminist issues in the Pakistan, everyone in the Pakistan never spoke about the rights of the feminists in the Pakistan. Why the females are becoming feminist? Because of the brokerage of the same, in fact, with the men dominance in the Pakistan. They're tired of being self-connected to the low self-esteem of their sexual organs. I figured it out by myself as I observed throughout my practice of the operative laws enforced in Pakistan under the Islamic Sharia. Thereafter, the individuals should have to consider the Islamic Sharia at the first instance, and after that, they will consider to become a human. Yes, and if they're not willing and they're just executing the negated neurology apologies to each other thereafter, which offense they will cause the most in the Pakistan appears to be the my effective judicial testimonials to the whole of the central judicial lines of the Pakistan, especially. The young boys are fearing their careers and the females are fearing their outrage modesties. Fear of the perpetual succession of the properties becomes question in my court of justice. And if they always negate their ignorance to the facts in existence, I never ignore myself. I never ignore my self-esteem. Yes, and one should be very activated with the fact of the same. But on the contrast, what we observe the most is a question of law, where the Article 199 in the Supreme Judicial Councils, in the High Courts, Those are only words written on a paper. The individuals are not the paper followers. They are not they are followers of the senses of their bad smells to each other, and they're not in the positions to accept, under the exceptions of general negligence of the humans, that if any person stinks, it means every human stinks. Yes, this is a humanitarian question of operative law. Yes, under the Australian Legal Operative Law Act 2014, 2004, sorry. The effective mandate within the central divisional benches in the Pakistan appears to be the most negated issue in the Pakistan, as per my concurrent rulings in the central divisional areas of the Pakistan, that the local residency of the cities are not in the position to undermine their thoughts that it is very difficult to maintain the fiscal issues while mobilizing the social defaults of the same. In fact, but 97% of the individuals are not in the positions to accept that they are under the homogeneous economical disasters. Yes, because of the COVID-19, and they're not following the scientific approved living organic organisms. They're just hypothetically so over empowered with each other that they deliberately and critically they are not trying to convince their souls that they should have reconsider or rebuild the social culture under the Islamic Sharia at per their free wills under the consent of their livings. Yes, I always challenge myself every day, whether I like it or not. I just always challenge myself throughout my life and always create the things for the welfare of the Republicans, because there is no one who is trying to have a firm stand on the humanitarian negligence in the Pakistan. Yes. So, if we are not fit, if we are not physically capacitated, and if we are not being provided the rights by the circulatory subordinate issues, thereafter which offense we will cause in our upper age limit appears to be my concurrent operative question of law. That whenever we just observe the telecasting shows and the behaviors of the political speeches of the individuals, it appears from their words and phrases and idioms and their poetry that they are trying to insult the institutions of Pakistan. It appears. And after, when the judicial officers and the advocates just put notice to the same object of judicial issues, they just say that we were not aware of the fact. That should and will not be accepted by anyone, because the public is facing a hard trial inside their houses, outside their houses, by automated negations of their inclined deferred syndrome issues. And when I just cross study the physical incapacities of the individuals and raising the benefit of guilt, this is a new term. The benefit of guilt under the humanitarian negligence to the surrounding appears to be the orthodox thought as per my judicial operative understandings. Thereby, I just observe by myself that after procuring an amount of over reproduction, females overgrowth in the Pakistan, the individualism is raising. Yes. And the uncapacitated or non-capacitated individuals are not willing to accept that reality. Only 4% is ready to understand that issue in the Pakistan. But the remainder 96% undermining their uh, defaults, fiscal one, to their circulatory issues, that they were not in the positions to maintain the house. They were not in the positions to maintain the office. But all of them are not in the positions to observe the uncertain and certain momentums of their constitutional issues, that who was and who were willing to abide by the same, in fact. Yes. And if the students are not being educated under the dilemma of the non-observation order of their parental affections while their parents want, this is a big issue in the Pakistan, which I observe by myself, that The parents want from their children that the education will not reward the same child under the defection of the abuse of the business oriented individualism in Pakistan. That is a fact now. Whereof, when they just feel the embarrassment of not being educated, they just commit the overdose of the narcotics every day and every night inside their houses. And I'm not trying to raise a name of anyone because I'm also a human. So my intention is not to embarrass, to insult anyone, just to let the aware of the Republicans that they collectively and try to understand the humanitarian negligence cyclones. Yes, and I just figure it out by myself. While whenever I just put a question to a young student to provide me a solution to its life, he just raised the adverse plea to its parents that the parent first parent that he was if he is not entertaining with the income and expenses, then his parent is not good. Alas, that if his parent is not good, then who is there to made him? Yes, those questions which have no solutions should not be asked in the public lines by the public at default. And if I'm at default, let's suppose in my manner of thinking under the critical constitutional observations order of the Republic of the Pakistan for the welfare of the Pakistan, because I'm a Pakistani, so I feel very proud to create things for the reformic manner or reform manners. The concept of the deconceptualization of the individuals should have been understood by the Republicans. Yes. And thereafter, the education of the basic types of the needs to the each other and to help the each other in their hard times should have been understood by the same object of the civil institutions in Pakistan. They just raised the pleas of the in circulation of fact to the same. And when I just apply a law that where is the public law maintenance in the Pakistan, I'm just shocked to observe that in the Lahore city the traffic disorders issue is primarily there. It doesn't matter that you are rich. It doesn't matter that you are very poor. Yes, these are the issues which are being suffered by the ordinary individuals and special residents, everyone in the Lahore city, and I expect that in the all of the other subordinate cities as well. Whereof the question regarding the morality of humanitarian negligence and not trying to appeal to their own self is a baseline issue of the Pakistan right now. The not following of the personal time data embezzlement of the public disasters. Everyone wants to work in the government sector, but no one is willing primarily to extend its time for the welfare of the republic. Everyone wants to work in the private sector, but no one is willing to settle down its personal difference in his house or in his office. They just have adapted or in the adaptations or adopting those laws which are not being reformed by the same. In fact, therefore, I just refresh my memory via the Kanuni Shahadat articles. So I should consider these things in the public sectors that the public is, if the public is immoral, that is their failure. If they are not in the positions to observe the same, in fact, that is their failure. That is, and no one should take their failures on its shoulder. They should create the things for the welfare of the public, and they don't. If I'm suffering from a disease, let's suppose in the medical science, if I'm suffering from a disease and I'm just raising my disease to the others, that I'm suffering from because of them, because of him, that is not a question of law. Yes. If I'm suffering from anything, there might be some fault of mine which led me into the suffering of the things in the bad manner. And after being married, the negated married individuals always raise the criminology in negations to their parents under defection. Yes, I figured it out by myself while just having a deep observation regarding the Republicans at default every day. So if I'm at defaulted, then I should have to convert those defaults in the moderate lines of execution of my own. There is no one who is willing to extend my thoughts to the public society or to the civil society. If you are not civilized, and it is there is 100% chances that you are not religious. And if you're religious, then you are civilized. Everyone have or had to follow the religion of its choice, whether it's like it or not, because of the living of the general science. That is a myth. Now, yes, because of the public hunger strikes outside the houses. I just observed those factors under the humanitarian legal reforms wings of the globe as well. Because I found these issues while just having a deep eagle eye on the public sector every day. From the year 2016 towards 2022, I'm doing these things by myself, by just reforming myself. So many public and so many individuals told me that you're just wasting your time. This just said to me. They said to me that I'm wasting my time. I told them, if I'm wasting my time, then the time is meant to be wasted. Either you can invest the time in a perfection method of ascertainment of the rights of the society for the collateral benefit of yourself as well. But the defaulted individuals never accept their self under the umbrella of doubts. I ask them that you are grown and you are under the failures of your society. They repel to me that we are facing challenges because of the government. This is a, that statement disclosed to me that such person is not in the positions to run its self. So government is never bad. It's the individuals. I always lay foundation of this point for the welfare of the central Pakistanis as well. And I just want to add here a further point during my telecasting observations that the neurology. Yes, this is my favorite topic these days. The difference between the neurology and the cost-effective, uh, you can consume that fact. The cost-effective measurement of the brain cells is an other science which is not in the Pakistan. I observed that the 97% Pakistanis are suffering from the neurology disorders, and they do not have the idea that they are suffering from the neurology disorders. They have self celebrated their neurology disorders into the habits of the pursuit to the happiness by their self. They're not willing to observe the human's existence under the natural orbit of the gardens. Yes. And they are not in the positions to maintain those issues inside their houses. So I am not negating the society. Basically, I just want to let the Republicans that if they are in the positions to just exaggerate their powers while the non-observations of their orders and while just observing the permanent negations and while just saying that we were not aware of the rights. If I'm not aware of the right, then I should aware of the right that it costs to live in a city despite of a village. If I'm living in city, I should acknowledge this fact that my central brain. If I'm living in any area, so the life is always very expensive. You have to do something. So the neurology science, where from the content should be delivered to the Republicans for their welfare, which I just admire under the scientific observation of mine that the neurology scientific disapproved transactions. The neurology scientific disapproved transactions in the brain cells always raise when you just hear the negation in the negative words from the society under the private come public nuisance offense as well. So no one can prove me wrong in this sense. So wherever you go, yeah, that such area is always populated with the public dehydrated oxygen. If a person is smoking, having drugs, that is not an issue. The issue is that such person is already under the dehydration of the hydrogen, yes, and carbon dioxide. outside its house automated automatically. And the neurology cost negation cells will be embezzled during that time, and he will not be relocated to like to live with his family in subordination. That is called psychiatric disorder as per my calculation. Yes. So thereafter, the embezzlements of the thoughts of the humans in existence always come forward in the public sector, while they are not trying to convince themselves that they were in the situation of their retroactive substances mean not narcotics. The public should understand that the narcotics is a substance, and there are a lot of the substances that I just said, that the multilateral disordered substances in Pakistan. But the central Pakistan is not observing these factors. They just mad at to live in the cities, while I always want to live in the rural areas. But I'm stuck in my with my family in Lahore. So the rural area, the beneficial area, is the rural area. But despite of that, the public always live in the urban area, and they are addicted to live in the urban area. And when you asked to face the fiscal outs sets of the same, they just capitalize negation with the sense of the innocence to the same person. You thought that I'm easy. The concept of the Republicans under the central decentralization of their brain cells while having no point of living, and just committing the over voices of the nuisance raise their bad voices outside my house right now. Yes, and they just claim that we were very innocent and we were very. This is not a good point. By raising a plea of innocence everywhere, I am not becoming an innocent person or an aggrieved one or an aggressor. Any person who said that he is very innocent, it means that he is under the doubt to himself or itself or herself that the same subject of innocence is not a question now. And by the time you have to be carry forward yourself with the latest types of the abductions of thoughts. One should abduct its thought behind that. I always fight my thoughts. And everyone, every human beings fight 3000 thoughts every day. I calculate these neuroscientific disapproved transaction as well. This is my level. So 3000, you fight in your house 3000 thoughts every day, and you are not willing to understand that you are fighting with 3000 thoughts. During fighting of 3000 thoughts, you are not in the position to transact well balanced in the civil positions, and thereafter you commit crimes in the criminology, in the adverse fact. And thereafter you just raise the environmental disorder via the environmental law 1997. And when you are in the challenging task, you cannot fulfill the same because of the low self-esteem with the low statement of every sort, bank balance and properties and everything, and you just raise the reciprocal admiration of negations to your surrounding. Yes. So stay blessed. This is the advanced comparative constitutional advocate Gulraiz.